What do you need to remember today to be sure to have no regrets going to sleep tonight? We continue the series on starting your year with a sustainable mindset. And, we've seen the importance of rest and how to do it effectively to be in a good state in order to set sustainable goals, thanks to a few of the principles of permaculture. Then we made sure to define success with flexibility. And last week, moving towards our intention, we made sure they were aligned with our attention, aligning intention and attention. Today, we talk about affirmations and congruence to keep motivated all the way. Why and how? Stay tuned. Bonjour. Life Forklers, it's Claire from Integrally Alive, an apologetic freedom for unconventional humans with practical body-mind wisdom and tools to create the life, feeling alive from the inside out. Show notes on integrallyalive.com as usual. So a few years ago, there was a brilliant series of short movies that went super successful on French TV. Bref, one thing that made it very special is they often would show an interaction between two people on two levels. So, for example, the character would go to a job interview, and at the end, when he would go, the dialogue would go like this, and there was a voiceover that would say something like, he said to me, "We'll call you back." And I heard, "Go to hell." And it was very funny because it was real. How many times do we hear things that don't match with the behavior of the person saying it? Here is a classic. "Hi, how are you doing?" "I'm okay." Are you sure?" "I'm fine." What subtitle would you write to that last line? Well, if I had to, mine would be, "I am not okay and I don't want to talk about it, so stop asking questions now." Which is slightly different from the wording, "I am fine." And that is exactly the problem with affirmations. When you say affirmations, how does it feel? Is there any mismatch between what you say and your sense of truth? Or are they perfectly aligned? In other words, do you honestly believe what you say? That is congruence. No inner resistance whatsoever between your verbal and non-verbal communication. And that is true for communication with others, of course, but with yourself alike. So let's imagine Bob's back, and his affirmation this week is, "It becomes easier and easier to exercise." The problem is, in reality, he sees himself as someone who don't exercise and has to motivate himself to do it because it's painful, difficult, and unpleasant, frankly. So each time then he says his affirmation, he's basically reminding himself that he doesn't believe this is true, and his emotional state is going down. It accentuates the gap between his current behavior, his self-image, and his goal, his ideal self. And as a result, he's making it worse, and he doesn't feel better and doesn't encourage him to do the behavior he wants to develop. It's like receiving a compliment when you know the other person doesn't really mean it, but only says so to please you. It doesn't make you feel good, does it? It's like, ugh. It's actually worse than if they said nothing, right? I mean, your intellect is okay with the idea, great, but your whole body reacts to the non-verbal communication, physically, emotionally, and your emotional state influences your thought an awful lot. So, by the way, for more examples and applications in communication, see the video in the show notes from Virginia Satir, who is a pioneer on NLP. Super interesting. So, if you're going to use affirmations, you need to become congruent about it. You need your emotional self to believe and be happy with what your intellectual self is thinking and saying. You want to feel a big hell yes in your body when you say that. And congruence, of course, goes way beyond affirmations. And to some extent, honestly, I would argue that once you reach a state of congruence, you don't need affirmations. Sometimes in a session, all I do is facilitate my client into this state of congruence, because sometimes that's all that is needed for change. And it is very powerful because it reaches and actualizes the self-concept, our organized and consistent set of perceptions and beliefs about ourselves. How can you do this? First, know what you want and check what you want. And with the previous episodes, you should have a clear idea of this now. So check what you want and then compare it to your self-concept and to your current situation and self-image. What is true now that makes your intention possible? Because you didn't make that up from nothing. So there are things that are true today that will lead to this intention. What are they? And each time you come up with something, check with your emotional state when you think about it. Are your emotional self and your intellectual self congruent? Do they align? Do they agree on that? If so, go to the next step. If not, find something else. What is true in your emotions? So now you go to the next step. You find congruence. What would be a way to sum that up that maximizes the congruence? A sentence, it could be even a word that will act as a reminder of that congruent intention. So for example, if your goal is to exercise like Bob, to be healthier, what is true now that would help you exercise more? Could be, I feel good when I'm exercising, or each time I exercise, I build momentum to be healthier, which I kind of like. So I'm going to go with that one. And now I want to sum that up. So it could be something like, I exercise and build momentum. Now, it doesn't mean anything to anyone. And you've seen I stripped some words that could be important. But when you say that, that short sentence, you know what's behind. And you have the supportive emotional state that makes you want to exercise. And the last bit is the most important. When you say or read those words, you should feel a big hell yes in your body, in your whole body. So when I say, if I go on with my example, when I say I exercise and build momentum, if I don't feel this big hell yes, these are not the right words. I need to come back and find others. Maybe I need, momentum was not the most important for me. Maybe it's health, whatever. I need to come back and to play with words until when I check, when I say that sentence, I feel this big hell yes in my body, this big emotional response. Because what we are after here is not an affirmation of something that we are trying to believe. It is a reminder of something that's happening right now and that we want to continue because it's going to get us there. So, what do you need to remember today to be sure to have no regrets when you go to sleep tonight? What would help you remember that? Drop your comments and questions on Facebook or Instagram. Sum up your reminder in an emoji. And I love these conversations. And I reply not only in the comments, but in the Facebook Live every Thursday. So drop your comments and I'll be back. And that was your weekly dose of fierce love, a mix of love and brutal honesty. Boom! Life just got more sparkling. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And remember, if you want more, subscribe so you get your weekly dose. Stay tuned for the Facebook Live and the next episode. And au revoir.